So just as people start to make their way in, hopefully you've all got access to sound and bits and pieces, what we're going to be doing today. For those that haven't been part of these sessions before, I do want them to make them not too interactive, but because I know some people like to just sit and listen. But throughout, if you have any sort of questions or queries, especially with ideas like, could it do this, could it do this, please just drop them in the chat box. Your ideas and your questions are really useful for me because as practitioners, you'll see things in very many different ways that I may do. And it would be great just to get a little bit of feedback, and hopefully we can tailor it to make it really useful for you. So if you do, please pop it in the chat box, and I'll be able to pick that up, or Beth will be able to pick that up. We'll be able to help as much as we can. So just while people are coming in, they're still kind of dripping in and out, I really want to kind of go over what we're aiming to do today. There is a long list of bits and pieces, and I did say to Beth that I did go a little bit over the top with how deep I went with it. So we may cover it all. If not, it's another time, or I'll drop an email. What I will try and do, because I'm using lots of different tools and bits of software, I am going to put an email together with all the links, which I'll send to Beth, and hopefully she can send out to you. So that should be available. The intention tonight, though, is to really look at how we can use free AI tools that are out there. My big focus is on making sure we use tools that are free and accessible for us all to not create stories. I think this is always the misconception. It's about creating stories. What we're looking at is how we can use AI to help generate resources and tools that can help support when we're teaching creative writing, creative storytelling in our settings. How we can use them, as I always think of them, as like light bulb moments. A lot of the time, because of the nature of our roles, it's sometimes hard to get into that creative zone where we come up with new ways of thinking and new ways of being. And I really want to use this session as an opportunity to showcase how we can use AI as a tool to support us as creative individuals. I'm going to try and focus it on a broad range. So the intention is to really look at storytelling, not just from the perspective of primary school education, but also secondary and maybe adult and community learning. Now, a big focus of what I wanted to base this on, when I was talking to Beth about this, I'm a big fan of one of my favorite books from education that I really got into was Teaching Thinking by Robert Fisher. And he talks about the benefit of teaching philosophy to children. And actually, we can teach philosophical ideas at all ages. So that's something that I kind of went, well, maybe I can use that as the basis for creating a story, as opposed to just purely creating a story about, I started off with a duck going out and buying a loaf of bread. I was thinking, well, how can I use philosophical inquiry to build on this? And there's a lot of great research about how philosophical inquiry helps support critical thinking and development in our kind of children of all ages, really. The tools I'm going to be using tonight, I'm going to be going for ChatGPT. I'm going to be using a little bit of Google's new software, Gemini, formerly called Bard. I'm going to be going into some image generation for our creative stories, looking at Leonardo. And I'm going to be using a musical software called Refusion, which is an AI music generator for enlivening our creative stories with sound and song. And then if I have time, I'm going to be looking at how we can combine all of these into interactive mediums using the AI generator on Canva. So let's get started with this. So as I said, if at any point you have a question or a query, please just drop me a message in the chat box and I'll be able to see this. So that's absolutely fine. Hopefully you should be able to see my screen, which has got ChatGPT 3.5. If somebody, it would be absolutely wonderful if you could just give me a little thumbs up. That would be fantastic in the little box. It'll help me make sure that I'm on the right path. So if you can see my ChatGPT screen, that would be wonderful. You just give me a little thumbs up. That would be fantastic. Okay, so let's begin. I'm going to start with ChatGPT because ChatGPT is the one that kind of really kickstarted, even though AI has been around since 1951, you know, in various different formats, it's really kind of been ChatGPT which has started this revolution of AI in technology. And I'm going to start with, as I said, I'm looking at philosophical inquiry as a storytelling medium. So I'm going to go straight onto ChatGPT and I'm going to go provide 5 philosophical, helps if I can spell, quotes or ideas. There you go. I'm just going to start with this. Okay, so what this is generating for me straight away is 5 key areas. Okay, now straight away, I am going to probably not be teaching Friedrich Nietzsche to young children, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one of these that I think really fits quite nicely. So let's have a look at one of these here. Okay, let's take. I could teach Aristotle. That's great. Maybe I can teach René Descartes. You know, let's pick one that's really interesting. Okay, well let's go with Aristotle. So our intention tonight is that we're going to make a creative story in which the underlying principle is based on Aristotle's quote, "What we repeatedly do, excellent then, is not an act but a habit." Let's create a story from this. You may be sat there thinking, how the devil are we going to do this? So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to start from here and I'm going to generate what could be an initial question. So using the quote, create a possible story framework involving 3 characters. Okay, so what this is going to do is it's going to give me 3 very basic characters, and it's given me a little story here to start. So straight away, we've got this generated story. What it's done is it's put together a little framework for us about 3 characters, a young blacksmith, Olivia, and somebody called Sebastian, who resorts to underhanded tactics, spreading rumors and sabotaging Marcus's work wherever he can. So we can see from a very simple sense how we can take that quote and we can adjust it. Now, the great thing with ChatGPT, and as I say to anybody with any of this, it's about going, well, how can we develop it? And what you've got to do is you've got to ask it questions. You've got to give it orders. Don't worry about being polite. Let's start with this next element. So what I want to do is redo the story, but make text suitable a 6 to 8-year-old. Cut the word count down no more. Okay, so still got my 3 characters. It's given me some nice little words in there. Really started to play around with it. So we've taken exactly the same story based off the same philosophical inquiry to create this story. Now, again, we can start to play with this. We're doing a young apprentice blacksmith, a kind mentor, and a jealous rival. Now, I don't really want to do those sorts of characters. I wanted to make it a little bit more fun. So I'm going to have redo, but can you include a cuddly duck, friendly marmot, and a I don't know if anyone can think of an interesting character. Put it in the chat box. So what I'll do is I'll leave it there. First person to put in the chat box an interesting character to go with my cuddly duck, a friendly marmot, and something else. But what we're looking at here is how we play with it. And maybe again, this is an opportunity where we use this to start to build with the children. They can maybe go away and do a task. They think of the activities, they think of the characters, how we describe them, very much based off what we've got here. I'm still waiting for people to chat in with who's going to be our third final character in our story, a talking chair. Now, we had a tall flamingo and we had a talking chair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for both of you there. We're not going to have the friendly marmot. We're going to have tall flamingo. Okay, so what it's done now the issue here, and you'll spot the issue, it's all about my command. So what it's done now is it's still got Marcus, Olivia, and Sebastian, but now it's brought in Professor Perch, which I really like the idea of for a talking chair, Felicity the tall flamingo. Okay, what I need to do is redo, but remove Marcus, Olivia, and Sebastian, just include new character. So what I did previously was didn't make my instruction very clear. So what it's done now is it's redone it, but it's got my three main characters: Quack, Professor Perch, a talking chair of wisdom beyond his years, and Felicity, the tall flamingo of a mysterious quest. So straight away, we've started to play and add and generate this story. And this is where we really start to think about it. Now, the next step is we can go so many different ways with this basic story. We could maybe take this story to a script for play. So we can start to use this again and build from it straight away from a very simple idea, this philosophical idea. We've got this story, we've started to tailor it. Again, you could maybe put student names in there. It doesn't have to be Professor Perch or a talking chair. We've now gone, okay, it could be Jeff, it could be Frank in our classroom. But now we have this little line here. So now we've got these characters. The interesting thing here, luckily, we've got those bits in there. Now, the key thing with ChatGPT is we've got to look at making it simple. And you have to sometimes be a little bit aggressive with the language. So if I looked at this, I may go, well, actually, this isn't really suitable in terms of the words and the phrases. So again, redo the play, make language simpler, more simple for the 6-year-old child. Okay, so again, you may need to go in and tailor it. Now, this is where, when I talk to people about AI, they start to think about how it's going to take over. It's not. The human still needs to be in there. I can see this straight away, and I may think there's certain language in there which is not entirely suitable. And what I would do is I'd copy it, I'd adjust it, I'd change it. But we've still got this very basic story that we've got here, and we've built from it. So this is it from a very simple sense. So straight from the start, we can use that philosophical inquiry, build a story, add our characters to it. But we want to go further with this. So let's take our story again. And this time, what I want to do is I want to think of an activity where I want the children to write the story. I want somebody else to write the story. So I'm going to say, using the quote, we'll go back to my initial quote, because I still want it to be based off our Aristotle. So we're using philosophical inquiry, using the quote, just copy and paste it in. Provide 5 opening sentences for a possible story. Spell correctly, students, and so what it's done now is it's put the quote in it, but it gives me that opening line. What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to get it to redo it, but remove quote, instead use that theme. There we go. So now I've got my opening line for my story. In the quiet of the early morning, as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the curtains, a sense of determination filled the air. Today was a day when ordinary actions would pave the way for extraordinary achievements. And now I've got my opening line. And I can create loads of these. So I could say create 4 more, but genre of, so I can have fantasy, horror, crime, and romance. There we go. So what it's doing now is it's developing and furthering, and you can give these different. So I've got something straight away where I can start to give out these. Oh, who would like to do a story based on this? Who would like to do a story based on this? But I've got these opening lines. And this is again the great thing of instant resources that I can create. I'm still the tutor who's going to be facilitating and supporting, but I've got these instant resources that I've made, and I can tailor these, I can customize these. So I can say customize these to relate to, I don't know, the local school of, make up a school, Penn Hewin CP in Wrexham. So, again, you could customize this to, it's a bit of rubbish one, that one, but we can customize it, we can play around with it. And this is the interesting thing with these sorts of stories, and we can give it out to them. So let's say, for example, they've got this one here. Now, we can give this to some students and they can go off and they'll absolutely wing it and they'll do amazing. They'll write the story. But for those students who need a little bit more support, let's think about how we can provide them with some prompts and bits and pieces. So using the open story sentence, give them the open story sentence, provide some pointer questions, help student continue story. So again, this is something where we may want to have these, cut these out. I call it like a thinking pot. So you could cut them out, put them in a tub, and maybe they could pull it out one at a time. So you've given them the opening story, and then they have to pull out a question. You've gone, okay, so round a table, who is the young detective? Okay, that person goes, oh, I've got an answer. Right, we're going to put that on a big bit of flip chart. What motivates a detective to uncover the, and then you get all this feedback. Now, again, what we could do is we could use this feedback, we could put it together. Maybe we get the students to start to answer these and we can start to put it into the generator. It's a whole idea of how do we develop, how do we build a story? And we're using this as quick fire resources. That's the essential thing of using AI tools. So we've got our story here about within the corridors of Penn Hewin CP, where whispers of intrigue float among the lockers and mysteries lurking behind every door. We got our questions, we got students providing answers. So using the questions above, a short synopsis, possible. Okay. So what it's done now is it's filled it in. It's used those questions to actually help develop, because we're going to take this to the next one. So in this one, we have the journey of Emma, a determined young student who becomes a detective amongst the whispers and mysteries of her school. So it's used those questions. This is kind of what we want from our students. We've got this little bit of fun that we can have here. Now, there are lots of different ways we can also build from this, and we can start to think about it from lots of different perspectives. I'm just going to pop over to another tool that I've got here. And this is the new AI tool. And this is from Gemini. This is Google's Gemini. Previously, it was called Google Bard, but Google Gemini now it's got a couple of extra little features which I really quite like with it. Let's start with the basic ones to begin with. Let's say I'm thinking of an older age group and we're doing creative storytelling. Let's say create 3 opening storylines. However, each one has a possible twist. Now, this is all about creating these simple lines. So here, we've now got these opening stories that we could cut out, give to students and go, okay, this is your twist story. You've got to continue this. This is, again, thinking of that higher level that we've got here. So we've got this like instant what the twist is, instantly start to play around with it. And this is where we start to think about, with something very simple. We're still using the same principles that we use with our primary school program, but now we're thinking of upping it to different age groups. And we can really kind of build from this. So I like this one, the antique shop. It's got an interesting carved pocket. Very, very interesting. And we're now going to start to develop this one. So using the story for create main synopsis. Because I want to use this and I want to really develop it. I want to make this story a little bit bigger. So here we've got now my story and now my basics of it. We're going to come back to that in a bit because what I want to do now is also show another feature that's in Gemini that's not in ChatGPT. And this is actually how we can use images as prompts. So at the bottom down here, you have what's called upload image. So I started playing around earlier on and I was putting some images in. So I've got here, I won't tell you what I was playing around with, but I have a marmot and a snake buying bread at a shop. Okay. So what students can do is with this is they can put images in here and they can say using image, create a possible opening storyline. What it's done now is it's looking at my picture of I've got a duck and a marmot buying a loaf of bread in the supermarket. We're going to come to how that's created. And now it's based on that. An image is created a whole story of this. And we can do it through quite a few things. This is the other interesting thing. For another time, you can put things in such as diagrams, ask it to explain it in simple terms and simple language. But we now have our story about Mrs. Mallard. This is all based off that simple image. So how did I get to this image? How did I create this story? And this is the next step. Because what I want to do is I'm going to take my story here and I'm going to create something that we're going to use in our classroom. And I'm going to start it. I'm going to put it for the very basics of it on a tool called Canva. But I'm going to follow this story of Penhuin, Emma, the determined young student who becomes a detective in her school. Now, for this story, so let's very quickly, using the above, create a short story of 6 paragraphs. And each paragraph contains no more than 30 words. Again, you can spell it incorrectly, that's fine. So what I've got now is I've got my very basic story that's put together. Actually does help if I spell correctly. Yeah. 6 story. Yeah. Sometimes you've got to shout it a little bit more. So what it's doing now is it's building my story. Let's say, for example, the students have made this story. What I want to do is I want to make this interesting. I want to make it jump out at them. I want to tailor it from just basic text to how we can make it a little bit more interesting. And we've already made it a little bit bespoke, but I want to go a little bit deeper with it. So I've got my story here. Emma, the student at Penhuin CP, and she's going into this stolen test paper and a missing class pet. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to use something called Canva, and I'm actually going to create a video. There's a reason why I'm creating a video. And we're going to use this video to make an AI storybook. So let's go to templates. Go to videos, and we're going to go to play with videos. Because what I want to have is a musical video-based story. And again, it's a great incentive to get children to, if you make your story, I'm going to help you turn it into a video. So you've got to write your story first, and we're going to make it some amazing video. So my video is all going to be based on this story of Emma, the student at Pen Huon, who's on a daring mission. So let's start with this from the very start. We're going to start with the first paragraph. Now, what I want to begin with is I want to generate an image. Now, if I go onto Google and I type, I want a picture of Emma lurking around a school as a detective. No, let's make one because I want this to jump out. Now, there are so many text to image generators out there. And what I've tried to do is I've tried to pick up ones that are really good and more importantly, don't cost you anything. Now, the majority of them will have a certain amount of images you can generate per day. So you'll see with each of them, there'll be like credits amounts. The first one I'm going to look at is Muse AI. And again, I will send all the links out for this. And all you do with any sort of text to image AI art generator is you put in keywords, key phrases. So I can actually just go straight to my ChatGPT. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the text off there, and I'm going to use Gemini. Using the text, provide 6 keywords that will make a good image AI generator. What I've done here is I've trying to think of the good words because sometimes when you put the words in, the amount of times you get an image that looks terrible. So I was playing around with it the other day. I wanted a duck and a snake. Oh no, want just words. There we go. Sometimes you've got to shout at it a little bit. But yeah, I wanted a. Okay, good. So what it's done here is it's given me some keywords. So I'm going to take these words. Put it in here. Put because I think that might generate something. And then all you do is you hit generate. Now, it does take a little bit of time. So what I'm going to do is from text, I'm going to go generate. And I've picked, you've got with Muse AI, you've got a few different options here. You've got realistic, normal, anime, or 3D animation. Now, the realistic ones come out really quite interesting. They're quite quick with how they produce. But what I've done is I've just put the keywords in because I want this to be my first story. As you'll see, you have a certain amount of credits. Let's see what it produces. That was my duck, and I wanted a duck and a snake buying bread, and it didn't come out so good. But generally, they are pretty clever for creating things. So let's see how this turns out. Okay, there we go. So it's created this for me. It's not bad. Okay, detective. I'm going to have with us spyglass. I'm going to ask it to generate it again. And this is the key thing. Very much like we use in ChatGPT, we want to start to build this image. So what I've got there is I've got a basic image, and it's going to create it because she's going to be my main character for my story. So hopefully now it'll be a little bit better because it's going to add a spyglass to it. It's not bad. The thing with any of these image generators, they are a little bit offy. Now, there are so many out there. So another one that you can use, which I find is particularly interesting, is called Adobe Firefly. Now, Adobe Firefly, again, is a free tool that you can get access to. So we'll go our United Kingdom. To log into any of these, let me just, I've got it in my bookmarks. There we go. You just need a Gmail login. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in exactly the same terminology because what they'll do is they'll produce so many different types of image. Now, the benefit with Adobe Firefly is it will produce 4 at a time, and you pick and choose the ones that you really like want. I've still got my story. There we go. Uh, I need to play this. Again, let's start to there's lots of these things in here. I'm going to get rid of some of these words. I don't want the word whispers in there. I'm going to put Sherlock Holmes style in there because sometimes you've got to be quite explicit with the words that are in there. Because what it's going to do is going to generate all of those to produce something. Okay, so hopefully this is creating something. Okay, so Emma is now this gentleman here. Drop for the sake of it, we're going to go with this for the time being. So it does produce some rather interesting images. So I'm going to download this one just for the time being. We're going to go to, there we go. We're going to go to my Canva. Because what that's going to do is it's going to download my image for me. There's my image. Pop this in there. So there's my image. Now, the great thing of these, because they're AI generated, they actually they're license free, so you can use them anywhere without having to worry about copyright or bits and pieces. We're going to go to our story. Copy this. I'm actually going to use the different image because that's the one that I want for this, because otherwise it makes no sense. So I'm just going to right hand click. I'm going to save it onto my computer. Should be absolutely fine. Brilliant. So I'm going to download this. There we go. Go back to my Canva story. Drop to my uploads. And here we go. Here's my story. Fantastic. Again, when you take a bit of time with this, she creates something a bit better. Again, you guys will think of something a lot better. This is a very quick play around with this, but we have our basic storyline here. We have our opening sentence, which I'm happy with. We go back to our video. We put some text in, add a text box. So we've got our very opening key little story there. We've got our video. And then we can add another page. So let's take that next one that we've got. So whispers of wrongdoing, a stolen test paper, and a missing class pad. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Sarah's desire for the tool flamingo that was stolen. So we're going to now I'm going to try a different piece of software, so a different image software. So this one is called Leonardo. Very interesting, this one here. This one has got some fantastic ideas and how it creates them. So now we're going to create a new image. There's so many different ones out there which have some really fantastic bits and pieces, and you can add different styles on here. So there's lots of different styles that we can pick from. So we're going to go for this. That one is there, and we're going to have here Emma. Missing flamingo stolen papers. That's going to generate it. So again, it's all about the language. I'm probably going to have something extremely interesting that comes out of this, but it's adding that context to our student story. We're able to, you spend a bit of time with this and you're able to really generate something that's quite bespoke to the students. With something like Leonardo as well. There we go. I like that one. Actually, I think I prefer that one. That's the one we have. We'll download this one here. Go back to our video. Add this to our uploads. And there we have our stolen flamingo and our test papers for our next element there. It just means that, you know, the amount of times that we're looking for an image to convey something, especially like a very bespoke story, we're now starting to really do this for young children, really create something a little bit more interesting. Let's take the next line of our story, put this in, and now we can start to add the next text box, just a little body of text. We'll play around with this. So it provides us with this opportunity to kind of go from here. To just play around with that. Here we go. You can play around with this as much as you want. But what we can start to do now is we start to build this story, where we're going, how we're going. And it does give you so many different opportunities. You can make fantasy pictures from it. We can make them quite interesting and cool. So, you know, if students want to have that opportunity to really make something a little bit more interesting, a little bit more. So this is using Muse AI again. Tooney, really play around with it. Super Spy, Solve the Clues, Dungeon. Again, using these sorts of tools, you're elaborating. And we can do it the other way as round. The other interesting thing is that we can actually use these images in reverse. You know, printing off these images or creating something, we can give these out as the incentive to build a story from. I can give them something quite daft, quite ridiculous looking. And again, it's that opportunity where students can start to go, okay, so what's happened from this picture? What's the next story? What's the next element? And it provides us with something that we can make bespoke. There's a specific theme that you're following that week, or anything like that. We can really start to go further with this one. So I'm just waiting for my next anime image this time, generating. They're generally pretty quick with how they do create. See how this one, nice. We like that one, fantastic. And we can, you know, if you're happy with that picture, just click on there and we can download this one. Add on another slide at the bottom. And now we're starting to really play around with it. There we go. So we could give that just that image alone, and maybe then that's another activity. You know, put into something like Gemini. So I can upload the image that I've just downloaded, and maybe I'm going to flip it and I'm going to do it the other way. So using image provided, create opening sentences for a possible story. So this time what I've done is I've created the image, put it in, and now we're starting to kind of go the other way around rather than the story informing it. So it can't help with now. This is the one Gemini at the moment is still playing around. It still has a few issues with it, especially with the image one. But it is coming soon. So we can start to play around with it as we go. So that's really useful. Okay. Now, the next element we can really start to play with, and this is where it does get a little bit more fun, a little bit more interesting, is how we can make the stories interactive, how we can play with them. And one of my new favorite tools that I've been playing around with far too much recently is called Refusion. Now, Refusion is a way of turning lines or elements that we have written into songs with music with singers. Now, I'm going to put my hand up and go, I am not a singer. I'm not very good at singing. But what I can do is I can use our story to help build a song, because what I want to do is I want to make it a little bit interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this in using the text, create two rhyming couplet lines of a song. Okay, so here we have our song lyrics. I'm going to copy those song lyrics. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them into Refusion. So Refusion, what you do is you add your song lyrics. And then what you do is you describe the sound, the sort of music that you want. So I'm going to put mystical, magic, danger, I don't know, synth, pop. And what that's going to do now is it's going to create a piece of music for me using my song lyrics. As you can tell, I was playing about with it quite a lot at the moment. I did one about a duck looking for a piece of bread. Has it created it for me? It's working on it. Here we go. So what it's doing now is it's creating my song for me. Now I am going to play it, so if you do have speakers, you may want to turn it down, but it is quite interesting to see. But it's taken these songs and it has played with it. Now this is the interesting point, is where we start to think, what does it sound like? So let's find out.
Guided by Mr. Johnson, wise and true, Emma Brave Sea.
I don't like that one.
Guided by Mr. Johnson, wise and true.
Don't like that.
Guided by Mr. Johnson, wise and true.
Okay, so again, what you can do here is you can start to play a little bit more of it. Now, sometimes actually, less is more. So we're going to have fun, pop, simple, female singer. Again, with anything such as using AI, it's all about the direction. It's all about the level of detail that you give it. More information that's more specific, the better you will get out of it at the end. Just still in the process of creating it. Here it goes. But what it means is that you can start to think of songs and it's starting to bring those bespoke elements. So our story has generated from that simple line to these different bits. Let's see how this has come out.
Guided by Mr. Johnson, wise and true, Emma Brave secrets, old and new.
Okay.
Guided by Mr. Johnson, wise and true. Guided by Mr. Johnson.
That one's awful. They're not always fantastic. You do have to play around with it a lot. I have got some fantastic ones I really did enjoy playing with. But once you've done it, we can now start to download it. Download it as an audio file. Take that audio file, and now I can upload it. So it's uploading right now to my audio. And now I've got this video. I can add that audio to the bottom, and I've got something which, you know, it's an interactive story. It starts to really build on what we've got. So actually, I'm going to move that there. Start to play that. There we go. So again, you know, it is all about having a little bit of fun with what we've got. So you can extend that to as long as you want, but students can read along. You can pause it.
Guided by Mr. Johnson, wise and true, Emma Brave secrets, old and new.
And we go from there. Now, like I said, Refusion, it is a good little bit of fun, and you can add anything in there. If you want to make it 1980s power rock, you can do that to your heart's content. It is a good little thing to play with. So we've made this video, we've started adding songs to it. There's images, you can really kind of work from there. But what's the next step? What can we do really to kind of go further with it? And I think one of the key things is all about that extension. What's the next step here? And what I want to do is I'm going to take this story, because we're going to stick with this story here. So I'm going to think about extension activities, work tasks, little bits and pieces that we can start to build from it. And I can just say, using the text, put that in, create a literacy comprehension worksheet. And again, what it's doing is these quickly created elements. And you can do this off your student stories when they put it in here. We've now got these instant resources that we can build from here. Using the story, create some numerical word problems for students aged 10 to 12. So it's that extension in another way. It's how do we build it from here? How do we develop it further? And again, let's take the story, translate to Welsh, and worksheet. And so now we're starting to go, well, we can make it in different ways. So that story doesn't just have to be in one element. We can start to really play with it and go from there. And that's a key thing. I have realized I've been talking quite a lot. Any sorts of questions or queries or sort of ideas that you've got generated so far, please pop them in the chat box. I'll be more than happy to go from there. Would anyone like to give some feedback or any sort of ideas? So you can see straight away, just from like using these tools that are out there, really nice basic way. I highly do rate with Gemini. It is quite a few different bits and pieces that are going out there. And you can put it the other way. So, you know, we can take a story that's already out there. So let's take the story of the Tempest and create brief in 20. So let's say, for example, we're now taking a story that's already out there and we want to make it simple for students. Okay, now that's maybe a few words. So simplify story of the Tempest for students to explore. We can take an existing story that's out there, and maybe, for example, we want them to build from this. We want them to develop it. So now we're going to say, using the story, create a way which students can build on this. Right. So we can really start to kind of add little bits and pieces, delve from here, go from here. So say, for example, you're working on an element, now got this resource that we've got here. It really allows us to kind of play with it. So now what it's done with the Tempest, it started to give some questions. It started to think of new ways, especially if it's a subject area that you've already been working on and delving into quite a bit. Now, it doesn't even just have to be a story. Let's say, for example, we want to create it into a different medium, but still use that creative writing medium. So using the Emma Lord Detective story, create 5 possible news headlines that students build on. You could take it a few different ways. Maybe, for example, you want to use this, they want to write a newspaper article or do it as a news story or any sort of element from here. So straight away, I've continued with that same story and now I'm giving them a newspaper headline. Again, something like this. I can take this. I really do like with Canva. What I can do here is I can just put in newspapers. And actually, I can use the setting they have here. Let's go to my newspaper, customize this template. And I've taken my ChatGPT story, the one that they've created and we've developed and worked on together. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to input my headline. Where's my images? Again, we're going to go to my uploads. We're going to go to my images that I've created. Pop these in. And this is something which I can print out and I can give to my students. And maybe, you know, they have to then write the news article that fits underneath this. It's a fantastic way of really playing around with it and adding it in a different medium. So it doesn't even have to be that creative story. It can be in a news article sort of way. So the key files to take away from this, Adobe Firefly, fantastic for creating your images. It has so many different styles on here, so it doesn't even have to be like a photo. I can make it into a piece of art, and you can play around with this. So many different effects from here. You know, we're going to generate another one here. This time what I've done is I've asked it to be a piece of art and go from there. So that's probably the one I wanted from earlier, actually. So there you go. And this is with Adobe Firefly, it is free. The same with Muse AI. They are free software that's out there. I have got a few others on here which I've really kind of been playing around with. So the Renaissance painting generator. It's an interesting way to put in, you know, different styles. Standard. There we go. So that's what it's generated in an AI style, but you can use it from different styles here. So say, for example, I want it. There we go. It does. There we go. So it plays around with it. There's lots of different options for us to utilize, and I will make sure these are all sent out and available for you. The final one that I've really enjoyed, I don't want to spend too much on it, but it's called Crayon. And Crayon is a drawing generator, and it's something that I really. Crayon one? No, sorry, there's another one. That's it, Freepik Picasso. Now, Freepik Picasso is one of those ones where, you know, when you're kind of, I'm quite good at drawing, but not that good at drawing. So Freepik Picasso is one where if you've got an idea as to what you want to draw, you have a go at it and it creates it for you. So I'm going to go back to my original one. Let's clear this one. So what I'm going to do here is with Freepik Picasso is I can add stuff in and it creates it for me. So let's say, for example, I want it to have a blue background and I can actually draw in the sort of thing I want. So if I want to have a person, I'm not sure why it's desperate to put a duck in there. I don't want a duck. Okay. So it's going to be a person. They're in their hair, and they're going to have a tie on. But what you can do is you can draw in roughly, and it will use the imagination of the AI to turn it into what it thinks you're trying to draw. So there's so many different things out there, and this software is getting better and better as it goes along. There we go. There's my little piece there, and we'll play with that. But this is a great opportunity to get people to think about what it is you're trying to draw. That's definitely what it is that I was trying to draw. Hopefully that little insight into some of the tools has been really useful and has given you some ideas moving forward. If you've got any questions or queries, please pop them in the chat box and I'll be happy to talk about them. I'll make sure the list is sent out and I hope to see you all very soon. Thank you very much.